Hello everybody, I am Shepard and welcome back. Let's play Zombie Shooter. So we are continuing on straight off from where we left off in the last part. And we have to get through this office block. I believe it is. And we've got no power, so we're going to have to restore the power. A typical shooter series scenario, restoring power. Right, let's fight our way through. I actually prefer the pistols over the shotgun or grenade launcher, so I do tend to use them a lot at the start. I'll be honest, I do tend to use them a lot more. But once I get my hands on the minigun, that's when I start to, you know, really bring out the firepower. Shotgun's kind of the last resort for me because I have to get up close and it's quite slow at shooting as well, which is not my style. Like I like shotguns, just not in this game. I'm not really a shotgun user. Alien Shooter 2 and Zombie Shooter 2, I do tend to use shotguns because there's lots of different variations of shotgun, and some of them are quite fast at shooting and very strong. So I do tend to use them in the sequels, but I never really used it in Alien Shooter either unless I really had to. So in Alien Shooter it was a bit quicker than this one is. Right, so we just gotta mow through these, get to the other side of where we started of the main hall, because it's blocked off. This is awesome, only so many can come through the door at a time, so just use the door to my advantage. I still think that they could do a lot more with the shooter series than they have done. You know, I just, in a sense, what would be really, really cool is if they made a, you know, something that was kind of open world, but kept the action as it is, if you know what I mean. To, you know, like, give the player a bit of an open world sort of abilities, you know, where they can sort of go where they want, when they want. There is a story involved, you know, you have to sort of scavenge up ammo a bit more, things like that. You know, I'd really like that idea, you know, whilst keeping it, you know, pretty action heavy like it is. Like, don't lose the heavy action of the series, but at the same time make it open world and sort of make it so that it's a little bit more survivalistic as well. Like, ammo is not quite as plentiful, so you know, you do run the risk of running out of ammo if you're not careful, or if you spend your money recklessly. Like, you know, I think that if Sigma team decided to do something like that, I think it'd be a real winner. It would win me over anyway, because I love that idea. Like, I know it's my idea, you know, others might disagree with me, but I think I really like that idea. Like, you know, I've said it since, it's an idea I've had in my head since Alien Shooter 2, and grenade launcher. Again, not really one of my favourites, but you know, chances are they're not going to do that. They've been working on other titles over the past while. I can't think of the name of them. All I can say is that they look really, really weird and fucked up. Especially one of them. Like, at the moment, it's been a little while. It's been a couple of months since I've checked the Sigma Team website, so I don't know what the story is about any new titles coming out, but you know, it's you know, at the moment it's not looking good for any more zombie shooters or alien shooters at the moment. But you know, you never know. They might suddenly out of the blue release something about a new one. I just wish that they kind of, you know, maybe change their game a little bit. And as I said, even if they made it a sort of open world or even semi-open world, that'd be alright too. You know, but you know, Sigma Team are kind of like what a lot of companies are like. They stick to what they know, which I suppose from a financial review is not necessarily a bad thing. Like trying something new and not having the finances can be somewhat troubling. You know what I mean? But if they went and made something a little bit different, you know, I'd really, you know, I'd be all game for it. I'd be really all game for that, because, you know, as good as the shooter series are, you know, like as I said, Zombie Shooter 2 had quite a failing in my books, compared to the usual standards of Sigma Team. But you know, at the same time, you know, it's getting a little bit wearing now, to the point that, you know, you're just playing the same games over and over again, just polished. You know, it just looks prettier, and you know, it's just got more stuff in it. But like I said, it's one of those games that if they thought about it, they could really do a lot more and make something really, really big if they had the bravery to do it. You know, I mean, like in the game industry today, it can be considered fatal or foolish to try something that you haven't tried before, or it seems to be the mentality of developers to try something different. It's, you know, the thoughts of it kind of seems to scare them for some strange reason. I think it's something that more developers should do, is kind of get out there and do something different, because if you don't, you know, I don't know. Again, I suppose it goes down to the mentality of the gamers these days as well. The gamers seem to be afraid of new things these days. Like, you know, they like to play the same stuff over and over again, which is something that I don't. I like when I see a series of a game, you know, I like to see them getting bolder each time and adding new stuff to it each time. But if they were, like, you know, I don't like the same shit over and over again. That just infuriates me. It's kind of like when you look at the Resident Evil series today, like, you know, it's not even Resident Evil anymore, it's just a fucking shooter. And it annoys me, because the Resident Evils were good survival horror games, but at the same time, I think survival horror has, I wouldn't say died, I just think that's been redefined. One second, then I'll continue what I was saying. Right, I'm going to increase my speed again, and I'm going to increase my accuracy. Mission 4, outside. Now you've made your way out of the office rooms, but the nidus of infection is somewhere on the underground levels, probably. The only way to get there is through the vent shaft. Use dynamite to stop the blower, which prevents you from entering the shaft. Okay, so I'm going to upgrade my pistols again. I will find a minigun, so I don't want to spend money needlessly. Maybe I should have bought that minigun, actually. Never mind. I can't go back on it now, because there's a couple of quite tough enemies here. You know, there's not many of them in this particular level, but there'll be plenty of them later on. But anyway, as I was saying, like, I think that the idea of survival horror has kind of changed. Like, personally, I liked the Dead Spaces, for example, but I didn't particularly find them very scary as such. You know, there was just something about it that didn't really unnerve me. I think it was just that the first time that you saw Necromorph in Dead Space, in the original Dead Space, it was, you know, it was pretty fucking scary because it's not something that you had seen before. And the problem is that, and Yahtzee Crawshaw said this as well, the monsters just couldn't get enough of the bloody spotlight. It was like they were fighting for spotlight, to use it in Yahtzee Crawshaw's words. You know, there's just so many of the fucking yokes that it doesn't, the horror effect of them kind of is not there anymore, because you're so used to seeing them, and it kind of takes the horror out of it, you know. Whilst with the original Resident Evils, there was always something unnerving, because there was always that insecurity of not knowing when something's going to jump out at you. Whilst in Dead Space, things just constantly jumped out at you that you could practically almost predict it. Like, you know, it got to the stage where you could literally predict when something was going to jump out at you. Be it that the violin strings start or whatever. Whilst in the older games, the music, it was nearly always just either silence, or the music had been running for a while, or the music was running since you entered the room. And it was the same for every room. It had a set of music, and you just, you know, you didn't know what to expect. But now you sort of hear the little violins, you know, shrieking in the background, and you know that something's going to jump out at you, or whatever. They've kind of forgotten what it was that made games scary back in the day. I mean, look at Silent Hill, the original Silent Hill. Now that was a fucking, like, in my opinion, that was probably, out of the games I've played, now there's probably scarier, more disturbing games out there that I haven't played, but out of the horror games I have played, Silent Hill 1 is definitely the top of my list. It's probably the one that most unnerved me, gave me the most scares. You know, when I played that game, I would have been, you know, I wouldn't have been very old. I would have only been about, you know, let me see, I think it was 99 when it came out. So I would have been about 10, thereabouts, you know, 9 or 10, and it really unnerved me. Silent Hill 1 did. It was something that just, you know, it gave me that sense of where I sort of questioned myself: do I press on or do I turn this off? You know, like to the point that I was quite scared, and you know, I actually questioned myself whether I, you know, continue on or not. Did I want to continue on? That's what true horror in a game is where you sort of question yourself whether you want to keep going or whether you sort of say, right, I'm too scared, I'm going to turn this off now, and I'll come back to it later. I need to take a break. But that's where that was true horror in gaming. And the first Resident Evil, like, I would have been younger again, and the first Resident Evil did that to me as well, because I didn't really know what to do. I was, you know, constantly running out of ammo, but then I sort of got the hang of it, and that. But it was still quite unnerving because you just never knew what was going to jump out at you, and it had this habit of whenever you start just to feel comfortable, it'd fire something new at you, a new monster type would arrive or something like that, and you know, probably a perfect example of that was the hunters, and they started to appear after you came back from the sort of outer sheds, kind of the gardening area, and you know, just as you've gotten used to the likes of the zombies and, you know, giant spiders and a couple of dogs and that, it just comes along and fires this hunter at you, and you're kind of like, what the fuck is that? And, you know, it really unnerves you. I remember it very, very well. It unnerved the hell out of me, because I had been so adjusted for so long in the game about that it was just going to be zombies attacking me with a few giant spiders and a few zombie dogs or whatever, and then it just flung a hunter at me and I didn't know what the hell to do. But that was kind of, you know, the peak of horror in games. And, you know, I disagree when people say that horror in gaming has died. It hasn't died, it just isn't being done very well these days. Like Amnesia is a game that has been kind of highlighting the horror genre for years, for the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. And then when Outlast came out, it was kind of a new game in the spotlight, and it almost took over from Amnesia immediately. But again, I can't really say because I haven't played either Amnesia or Outlast. I do have them, I just haven't gotten around to playing them yet. But, you know, it'll be interesting for me to see just how well they sort of go or work for me, because again, I've never played them, and, you know, I sort of felt that, you know, horror has kind of gone the wrong direction. For me, anyway. Right, okay. I'm gonna put one more into speed and one more into health. Okay. Mission 5, Vent Shaft. Intelligence reports that the vent shaft is flooded. You need to pump out the water to enter the laboratories. To dewater the shaft, you need to find electric pumps and activate them. Right, I'm gonna buy the minigun this time. And I will upgrade it by 1. I have full ammunition, so I don't need to worry about that. Okay, I'm going to leave it here for this part, guys, so thank you very much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed the video, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Thank you, and have fun.